with the world kind of basically going up in flames right now, wondering what's happening with the NBA season, maybe not be on the front of everybody's mind, but we all got a lot of time. So here's three scenarios of what's going to happen with the NBA season. This is episode 2 of Royal City Hoops. I am Billy, the B Train, which is my personal favorite. And we're all pretty bored here in basketball land. I've got nothing to watch. And who loses with all this? I think everybody loses. What's going to happen in the NBA season? Who knows? There's three ideas that I've been thinking about. I listen to Buster Basketball Podcast. I listen to Woj, the Woj Pod, Zach Lowe, the Hoop Collective with Brian Windhorst, who usually has Jackie McMullen and Tim McMahon on. And here's the three options that I've kind of put together now. I don't understand salaries and all that stuff. I'm not as jacked in as those people. That's a little complicated. We're just going to keep it real simple and talk about what's going to happen. Never mind all the financial stuff around it. So option one is pretty straightforward and probably sucks the most for basketball fans, and that's just to cancel the remainder of the season and start fresh. I mean, given everything that's happened, David Stern passing away, the Kobe Bryant tragedy, wouldn't we all just really wanted to just pull the plug and start fresh in a few months? Now, who knows if that's even possible with all the things going on right now. Who knows when life's going to get back to normal? There's just so much going on and swirling around that who can predict that? But I think this makes the most sense from a practicality standpoint. I mean, guys you can't just roll into the playoffs. You can't just suddenly start the season and go, okay, everybody's back to normal, let's have playoffs. They're going to need some warm-up time. They're going to need to practice. They're going to need to get some games in. What's the playoffs going to be like? How abbreviated is it? How late are you going to let it go? If you're going to is your priority to get in a full season next year? So that's option one. If they do roll right into the playoffs, I mean, I'd be worried, one, the basketball is going to suck from a quality standpoint because everybody's been isolated, sitting at home. Even if they have a basketball court in their house, it's going to be really hard to just roll in and start playing games. My other concern with that would be injuries. Not everybody's young. I mean, these are high-performing athletes who are going to go from, even if they are working out or they're on their couch, from doing low-level activity to high-intensity NBA games. I don't really think that's a good idea. So canceling the season is one option. Option number two is having an abbreviated season this year and an abbreviated season next year. So if the decision were made that, hey, we are going to go ahead and have a season, what are we going to do? Where you going to play some regular season games and then roll into the playoffs? Are you going to have an abbreviated playoffs? What's that going to mean? Where does that end? Are you going to go into September and October? Because if you go that deep, you're certainly not having a full season the next year. You're not going to suddenly start training camp for October and get into preseason and then start in November. That's just not going to happen. So does that mean you try to end it before football season and then start after football season? I mean, we don't even know if there is going to be a football season. So my thought is if they do try to have an extended regular season this year and playoffs, that's going to chew into next year. So we're going to have 2 abbreviated seasons. I mean, if you love basketball, that's probably the best scenario because you're going to get some this year. We're going to close out the season. A lot of questions revolve around, what happens with free agency, what happens with the draft, what happens with coaching changes, and we'll talk about a little bit about that later. So, abbreviated season would be nice. From a basketball junkie standpoint, we'd get something to watch, something to talk about again. It would all play out. So it might it might give people something to look forward to. I mean, the anticipation of having a season finally being here again and everything, it would be pretty high. It'd be even higher if they just tanked the season and did another season after. I mean, they're not going to do a full season, so that doesn't make any sense. And then after 2 years, going back to, okay, now we're back on regular schedule. So if the NBA's priority is to get back on a regular schedule, that's one thing. The third option is one that people may have heard of. It's been talked about a little bit in the media, is moving the entire season to start after the NFL permanently. So what makes this interesting is back in the day, TV viewership was super important. Before we all had TVs in our pockets, before Netflix and YouTube and streaming and all of that, you actually had to sit and watch the games when they were on. Now with League Pass, with highlights on Instagram, YouTube having abbreviated games on so you can watch highlights. I mean, you can get a 20-minute highlight pack when normally you'd have to sit there and watch 2 hours of game time, or 2.5, or however long you're going to sit there. How we consume the NBA has changed. And if you think of TV viewership like a real estate, if you think of your fans as real estate or customers or however you want to look at it, your revenue streams, if you were able to have a season that wasn't competing for eyeballs and attention with the NFL, which is the most watched sport in North America, that would be changing the landscape of how many eyeballs you could get. Now you're the focus of attention from December through to September if you change your season that way. It makes a ton of sense if you think about it from that standpoint. Now, most people don't like change. I'm no exception to that. So that one, it might be a little tough to get through. But if they're going to do it, if they're thinking about doing it, if that's a reality in their minds, is there a better opportunity to do it? It's sad to say that you're looking at opportunity with what's going on in the world, but sometimes circumstances force you to make tough decisions that you didn't want to make. Circumstances dictate what your answers are. Now, all of this is very speculative at best, right? The league can want to do something. The owners can want to do something, but there's also the players. The players have to agree to that. Are they, with that scenario, going to want to lose their summer off season? Now, there is an upside to that. I mean, if you live in somewhere that isn't the best climate in the winter, having to live there from October through to April might not be the greatest thing. If you're living through the warm weather in, say, Cleveland, not that Cleveland's a terrible place, but I know why LeBron left. Then you could live more months in a warmer climate than just the off season, or which is the summer. So there's a lot to think about. What happens with the players' opinion of all this? They have to want to do something about that, right? They have to want to change it. So that's something we can't anticipate. Now, there's a lot of up in the air things, right? What are you going to do with free agency? What are you going to do with the NBA draft? You can't have the NBA draft without making a decision on the regular season, because all your positioning is relying on that. Who drafts where is based on where they finish during the season. So if the regular season doesn't end, well, how are you going to have the draft before the season ends? If you cancel the season, that's different. Now you have positions. And there's a little bit of precedence for canceling the season. Now, it's not in basketball. It was the 1994 baseball strike. And the reason I know this and this comes to mind is because my hometown Montreal Expos were the best team in baseball at that point, and they didn't get a chance to have any October glory because of that. So there is precedence for a season just not ending with a playoff. Now, that's not the great, but then you also have free agency involved there. You can't have free agency before the playoffs are over. Right? How could you have free agency when players are still playing for teams? The regular season has to end and the playoffs have to end. So there's an entire offseason complicated by how the season is going to end. Mix into that what do you do about your coaching change? And this is from the Woj podcast. It was something that I found really interesting. And let's use Kenny Atkinson, who just got let go, as an example. If you're a team that's looking to change your coach and Kenny Atkinson's out there and you don't know how long things are going to be on hiatus, Do you consider letting your coach go to get Kenny Atkinson on your payroll? I'm sure there's discussions around that happening. So it's really interesting on a multitude of levels. The salaries, Woj talked about that as well. I am not smart enough to dive into that. So those are our three options. We're talking about you cancel the season and start over for fresh next season. You play an abbreviated season this year and an abbreviated next year, and then you go back to your regularly scheduled programming. Or you have an abbreviated season this year, and then you permanently shift the NBA calendar to December so that you're not competing with the NFL. I mean, if you think about the NFL's scheduling or the NBA's scheduling during football season, and you're looking at, I have League Pass, so I sit around and on a Saturday or a Sunday during football season, there aren't a lot of games on. If you notice, the Sunday games during NFL season are typically late games or late afternoon games when there aren't as much attention being diverted to the NFL. So that would be a really interesting long-term strategy. I think it'd be cool, but again, that's just my opinion. So who knows what's going to happen? But this is episode 2. I'm pretty pumped that I managed to string 2 of these together. We'll see what the next one brings. And like I said before, like if you like, comment if you have something to say, and subscribe at your own risk. Thanks for listening.